Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
It is Tuesday at noon on Peacock, but of course, it is 5 o'clock somewhere, perhaps in Pittsburgh, where George Pickens, everything's coming up soccer. He's got the Ronaldo celebration, Jay Croucher. I'm Matthew Berry. Go USA. Listen, one of us is a commie, one of us isn't. I am Team USA. Jay Croucher apparently is, and he's Australian. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. You're only here enjoying our freedoms, enjoying our life in liberty and pursuit of happiness, but that's fine. Don't represent. Whatever.
I like to change teams. I like to jump around.
Yes, jump around.
I got two American daughters,
Right.
So if they win, I'll be a big USA guy tonight.
If they lose, you're going to buy an Iran jersey?
No, I don't think I'll buy an Iran jersey, but I'll get back on the Australian bandwagon.
Father of daughters probably should not be a fan of Iran. That is for sure. Absolutely. Anyway, go USA. Go America. And by the way, that game coming up right here on Peacock and Telemundo at 2 o'clock. I'm a company man. It'll be in Spanish, but whatever. The ball needs to go in the net. That's all you need to understand.
It's better. It's better on Telemundo. It's more fun. Soccer was meant to be yelled at in Spanish.
That is 1,000% correct. Speaking of yelling at a screen, did you see the Colts and Steelers game last night, Jake Croucher?
Unfortunately, I did catch a little bit of it.
Yeah, because
I want to talk about the Saturday gate. The end of the game.
It was an incredibly frustrating game on many levels. Certainly, if you're a Colts fan, Jeff Saturday, no longer Jeff Monday, barely Jeff Sunday, definitely Jeff Saturday. I don't understand with the timeouts. And here's the one thing I will say to Jeff Saturday's that I will defend him on this, which is just like, we had enough time. He didn't feel like a rush for time. And they had all three timeouts. So I agree with him. They had enough time. They could have done whatever, throw it to the middle of the field, and that's fine. My issue is that, like, set up some plays. You know what I mean? Like, take some time. Like, your offense has struggled all night. Your offense has put together basically one good drive all game. And this is, like, you need a touchdown. You can't settle for a field goal here. You don't have Patrick Mahomes back there. You can't, like, all right, fine. Okay, there's 13 seconds left. All right, let me go win this. Like, you can't screw around.
I think the issue is...
I mean, like, right?
It's the same thing where the old school criticism of going for it on fourth down, usually the fourth down decision is correct. What screws up is that it's a bad play. And that was the problem here. It wasn't so much the timeout thing, which, yes, he probably should have called timeout earlier, but it's marginal. It's the problem is it was a bad play. Like, why are you running for a first down on 3rd and 3 or whatever when you need to be scoring a touchdown? It was just
and that particular play, the Jonathan Taylor off right side, think about how it, right, was, it didn't feel like they were set. It didn't feel like, super frustrating if you're a Colts fan, super happy if you're a Steelers fan.
The Steelers.
I think Jeff Saturday was given a very unique opportunity and thrown into I don't want to say an impossible situation, Jay, but, like, certainly not ideal. We can debate whether he should have been hired or the process that got to being hired. But the fact of the matter is the guy's the coach of the Colts. And, like, that was a situation where I don't know, maybe this is me projecting, but did you feel like, all things being equal, if you said both teams are talent equal, that, like, I had all the confidence in the world in Mike Tomlin and none in Jeff Saturday. Mike Tomlin's like, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe it's just how he projects, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, Mike Tomlin, like, I mean, that's a guy that's just like, you like that guy. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Jeff Saturday looked awesome. looked a little Nathaniel Hackett on the sideline, which is he should. It's his third game coaching in the NFL.
It's his third game. It's his third game coaching ever.
Yes.
I mean, right? You see
a lot of memes.
Like, this meme. Jeff Saturday hanging on to those timeouts. This is from Ben Stonium on Twitter. Pretty good. You know, like 59 seconds left. You know, Mel Gibson and Braveheart. Hold. All right, now the fourth quarter, 34 seconds down, third down, hold, and then final score 24-17. Now we, like, you know, like, I mean, they say you can't take the timeouts with you. Jeff Saturday said, oh, watch me.
Yeah, watch me.
And he did. So a lot to be made for that really frustrating game. Not only from just the timeouts and that the Colts had a chance to win, but I wanted this game to go to overtime because I needed some overs. Give me some Paris Campbell. I had the receptions over 3.5. I had the yardage total of 44.5 over. And by the way, Jay Croucher, listen, You guys know me. You guys have watched me. You've listened to me. You've read me for years. When I'm wrong, and it happens, it definitely happens, I will own it. I will fall on that sword. I will say, like, oh, yeah, like my preseason fate of Josh Jacobs, that was dumb. My preseason love of Allen Robinson, dumb. Just a bad call. Like, I'll own that. I'm not going to own this as a bad call with Paris Campbell. I won't.
Sure.
Because you know what? The analysis was right. They are crappy against the slot. Matt Ryan would be under pressure. They would be throwing there. Paris Campbell had hit this number in 4 straight games with Matt Ryan, both the receptions and the yardage by significant matters. But Jelani Woods, who, like, in all other weeks had gone 7 for 79, like combined for the season, 77-9, and last night goes 8 for 98. Jelani Woods had the game that Paris Campbell should have happened, and like because that was my bet from last night that we had on the show, Jay Croucher, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, he's open. He's open. You husk of a man, Matt Ryan.
Wow.
The ghost of Matt Ryan. Could you scare up a ball to Paris Campbell, who's wide open? He had a touchdown. Like, he could have easily had a touchdown. He was wide open in the flat on one of those. Like, you'd watch the replay of him just standing back there like a statue, but that's not kind to statues, because at least with statues, you can put them on a trolley and wheel them somewhere. I don't think you can do that with Matt Ryan. And he's just sitting there, oh, I wonder if TJ Watt's going to get me. I wonder if this defensive line's going to get me. Oh, I guess they got me. Throw it away. How long have you been playing quarterback in the NFL? How about looking for the open guy?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm just going to throw it into double coverage there.
It's strange he won an MVP. He won an MVP, which is going to go down as one of the stranger ones in history, though he did have a great career in Atlanta. But, I mean, maybe the guy who made the decision to move on from Matt Ryan and bring in Sam Ehlinger wasn't too far off the mark.
It was incredibly frustrating to watch that game. All I was just like, you know what I started doing? I'm alone watching the game. Like, my wife has gone to bed, the kids have gone to bed. I'm in my living room watching this game by myself, and I start going, 28-3, Matt Ryan. Like, now I'm trolling about something that has nothing to do with this from 6 years ago, whenever that Super Bowl was. But like, I'm now trolling. I'm now like doing the equivalent of Twitter, but by myself in my living room at like 11:30 at night, because that's what a sad man I am.
I could definitely see you pacing back and forth, gathering speed in those feet. Yeah, that was tough. Another tough thing out of that game, Matthew, was Najee Harris getting injured, and here's Mike Tomlin on Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland.
I'm just appreciative of both guys' efforts, man. Sometimes you get battlefield promoted. A guy like Benny Snell became a central part of what we were doing offensively, and he was still on punt team. He was still on punt return. He was still on kickoff. Ant Mack's the guy that's always waiting and working and waiting for his opportunity, and he did some things that we saw in team development in the preseason that make him a little bit different than some of the other backs, the things he's able to do in space, the screen game, the draw game. I just thought he was an asset to us.
Battlefield promoted.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, Matt Ryan battlefield demoted yesterday. It goes both ways. So Anthony McFarland activated off the practice squad. No Jaylen Warren in this game, who missed with that hamstring injury. It feels like so McFarland got some run, and actually, credit to McFarland. I thought, he had some nice runs. You heard it there from Tomlin, Mike Tomlin there. Benny Snell. You know what? Thank God that guy was a football player, because he would have been teased in high school if it wasn't for the fact that you're like, hey, Benny Snell. Oh, never mind, Mr. Snell.
Yes.
Mr. Snell.
You're
Yeah, exactly.
Play on.
He's a guy you don't want to mess with. But anyway, second half, 70% of Benny Snell's snaps came in the second half. He actually outcarried McFarland 8-2. If we'll get more information, and obviously this is the Waiver Wire show, so we'll talk about this. But if I was picking up a Steelers running back to replace Najee Harris, and again, we don't know the severity of the injury as we are here doing this live on Tuesday at just a little bit after noon. I would rank them still Jaylen Warren, then Benny Snell, then Anthony McFarland. That's, again, we don't know if Jaylen Warren, how serious Jaylen Warren's injury is, if he would be back here. Benny Snell's probably not going to get a ton of a ton of passing game usage. So my guess is that if Harris were to miss their game against Atlanta, they play the Falcons this week, that he would it'd be somewhat of a committee. You'd see Snell and Warren. Maybe you'd see Snell and McFarland if Warren and Harris are both out. It's still not great, but it's just worth noting, obviously, because whoever, in a week in which the Cardinals are gone, so you don't have James Conner, in a week in which Carolina's gone, so no Deontay Foreman this week. There might be some other injuries as well. Just sort of notable there. That's how I would rank them.
Yeah, I think Jaylen Warren's definitely the guy. He's the one with the home run upside. And then if he's out, then Snell is definitely viable as a streamer. And McFarland might even be too because he got a little bit of pass game work. But yeah, it's not a great situation.
It's not a great situation. It's a decent matchup against Atlanta. You don't mind that one. But anyway, it's a storyline we will continue to monitor throughout the week as you hit. If we don't get an update before waivers tonight, again, I'd kind of roll the dice that Warren will be back out there next week if Harris can't go.
Yep.
So a lot unknown there. I certainly wouldn't use a lot of fab money or my number one waiver claim on any of these guys unless we get news that Harris is going to miss significant time with the abdomen injury that he suffered.
Okay, let's get to RotoWorld headlines. Just RotoWorld headline today, one. Darnell Mooney is going to have season-ending ankle surgery.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate, and that Bears offense is obviously trending.
There's more headlines that are going to be coming throughout the show. We've got, when we get to running back waiver wire, we'll talk about some headlines. So just I want to give RotoWorld its due.
Yes.
As you know here, what a disaster for Chicago, right?
It really turned quickly, didn't it?
Oof. Well, not that quickly. It's been a disaster for a while, but then there was hope.
Yes.
And then there's no hope anymore.
Yeah.
Unless they're tanking. Unless this might make sense. Better get a better draft pick. Get some help for Justin Fields and that defense that desperately needs it. So Darnell Mooney, in the 11 games he played with Justin Fields, he had a 27% target share. He's got 46% of the Bears' wide receiver receiving yards so far this year, Jay Croucher. And it looks like, unfortunate, but he is, as you mentioned, out for the rest of the year with an ankle injury. The beneficiary, to the extent there is one, I suppose would be Chase Claypool, right? He's available in about 47% of Yahoo leagues. I would expect that this passing offense, such as it will be under Trevor Siemian, assuming that Justin Fields isn't coming back, and I just don't know why they would bring him back in a lost season, and you just lost your best wide receiver. Protect the franchise guy. So my expectation is that it'll be Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool, and you'll see a heavy run game with Montgomery there. But,
I think if Fields is back, and that's the whole other weird situation, is that he is practicing. It felt like it probably would be season-ending, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, so we don't know what happens there. But if Fields is back, it becomes a much more viable offense overall. And if Chase Claypool is now the number one wide receiver in offense with maybe the number one fantasy quarterback if he's on the pitch, then that is interesting. Claypool was good against the Jets. He had a big catch beating Sauce Gardner in one-on-one coverage. He played well. He was the most targeted wide receiver with 5 targets. So I think there is something there for Chase Claypool if Fields comes back. But yeah, if it's Chase Claypool and Trevor Siemian.
So they play the Packers this week, and it's one of those things where I would just sort of be like, I don't mind taking a flyer on Chase Claypool. Again, potentially, there's a 27% target share that's up for grabs all of a sudden on a team that we expect to be a negative game script. They're going to be throwing, that defense is brutal. We've talked about it. The Eddie Jackson injury, that hurts as well. And we've talked about the trades of Smith and Quinn. And so I don't mind taking a flyer on Chase Claypool. I think I'd want to sort of see it and see what the quarterback situation is. I'd want to see it against Green Bay, but I don't mind. Chase Claypool is somebody who's had, success in the NFL. But again, it's just feels like a bad situation. And by the way, especially against Green Bay and that run defense, feels like this is a heavy David Montgomery game. Yeah,
you would think so. Also, Trevor Siemian's not good, and he wasn't good against the Jets, but also the Jets have a fantastic pass defense, and there was also heavy rain. So it might not be as bad as it looks. So I think there is a little bit of upside. They won't play defenses that good the rest of the way. All right, let's get into waiver wide receivers. And let's start with the guy who should not be available in 49% of leagues, but he is, and that's Treylon Burks.
Why doesn't anyone listen to me? What should happen? What should happen in this world is that everyone should listen to me, and then it would all work out fine.
Yeah?
That's what it's like. Because I will tell you something about me, Jay Croucher. You and I are just getting to know each other. We don't know each other super well yet. But I will tell you is the people who know me well will tell me. When it's something that I know nothing about, and make no mistake, there's a vast list of topics of which I know nothing about. When we get into something I know nothing about, I'm happy to peace out. Hey, my daughters, Daddy, which dress should I get? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my wife, like, hey, you want to help me with the cooking? I know nothing. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So
chicken fingers guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, can you fry it?
Yeah.
It's a salad. It's a salad.
Mac and cheese.
Okay, then I don't know. Right, exactly. Like,
Microwave.
like, can I microwave it?
Yeah.
Then we're in good shape. Other than that, like, so there's a lot of stuff that I know nothing about, like world politics. Like, I have opinions in the United States, but world politics, nothing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. Try to make friends with the ambassador. Beats me. I stay out of that stuff.
Try and make friends with the ambassador.
Yeah, exactly. Butter them up. Take them to a game or something. I don't know. Whatever it is you do. So I don't know. When it's a subject I don't know, Jay Croucher, I peace out. I have no ego about that. But on stuff that I do know about, everyone should listen to me. And just follow my lead, and you'll be fine. I've made a career of giving advice that mostly works out. So we've been talking about Treylon Burks. We've been talking about him for a long time.
Sure.
Why won't people listen to me? Why won't they listen to you? Why won't they listen to us? Why won't they pick up Treylon Burks? Why do they hate us?
49%
Why do they hate
of people,
us?
49% of people
Why do they hate
us.
Treylon Burks?
Mainly you. Treylon Burks.
Is it an Arkansas thing? Do you not want to say "woo, Suey" when you watch him play?
Maybe. That could be part of it, actually.
It's fair, actually.
Look,
I don't blame
he
you.
has to be.
It felt weird coming out of my mouth right there.
He has to be rostered everywhere, clearly. He's legitimate talent. He's the clear number one wide receiver in that offense. He is the one who benefits from teams stacking the box against Derrick Henry. As we look at what he's done since returning from IR, consistent, steady diet of targets, and he doesn't need many to break big ones as well.
Right. I mean, he's gotten at least 6 targets in the 3 games since he's been back. He's playing over 50% of the snaps. The last 2 weeks, 70 yards last week, and he recovers the touchdown in the end zone, 111 the week before. So he's been terrific. Now, if there's one thing that I would caution, it's they play Philadelphia. They're on the road to Philadelphia, and he's probably going to see a heavy dose of Darius Slay and James Bradbury. So I don't know that I would necessarily want to use him this week. There's a chance he winds up on the hate list this week, but he needs to be rostered. You know what I mean? Like, the hate list isn't about guys available in your league. It's like guys on your roster that I feel like, hey, lower expectations. But his upcoming schedule, at Jacksonville, the Chargers, the Texans, like, you love that schedule coming forward. And again, what teams have been doing the last couple of weeks is like they're selling out to stop the run. They're like, Derrick Henry's not going to beat us, which is fine because that opens up single coverage for Treylon Burks. And you saw it if you saw any of the highlights last week or watched that game against the Tennessee game. Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a fear of throwing it up and letting Treylon Burks win a 50-50 ball. Like, go up and get this. And he's a big kid who can do just that.
That's the thing, is that earlier in the season they didn't have the confidence in him, and now they do, where they are throwing it up. In the Green Bay game, with the game basically on ice and under the 2-minute warning, Tannehill threw it up to him in single coverage against Jair Alexander to seal the game. So there's clearly that level of confidence. And that confidence is growing as well with Zay Jones, who had a monstrous game against Baltimore. He was the big beneficiary from Trevor Lawrence having his kind of superhero origin story on television. Zay Jones should be owned everywhere as well.
38% target share last week. He's now had double-digit targets in 3 of the last 5 games and in back-to-back games. Again, Jacksonville is often a negative game script, so they're throwing. And who are they throwing to? They're throwing to Christian Kirk, and they're throwing to Zay Jones. As you see the last 5 games on your screen right there, 3 different games with over 50 yards. Again, double-digit targets in 3 of the last 5. He had a bad game against the Broncos. A lot of people have bad games against the Broncos. They didn't need to throw to him against the Raiders. He still got 5 for 40, but he's playing over 90% of the snaps in every game. And so when you're a talented wide receiver playing over 90% of the snaps in a pass-first offense, it's offense going to be throwing, I think it's interesting. And then you look at his schedule. Detroit this week, Titans. You don't love the Cowboys, and then you don't love the Jets. But I would say that I think Treylon Burks the priority if he's not rostered in your league for the rest of the season. But if I needed somebody this week and this week only, Cardinals out, I'm losing DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown this week, right? I'm losing. You probably lost DJ Moore, but you know what I mean. Whatever, you're losing those guys, and whatever. You just lost Darnell Mooney or whatever, and you're nervous about some of these other guys that might be injured. I think Zay Jones is a priority this week as well, a top 5 wide receiver last week in a game in which the Lions allow the 4th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. to me, Zay Jones is somebody that needs to be in lineups this week, which means he needs to be on rosters. That's how that works.
Swaggy
That's how that works.
Swaggy are back.
Swaguars, they're not only back, but their mascot is earning endorsements.
Trevor Lawrence is taking the lead.
It's fantastic.
It's all
He's
happening.
like, yeah, the whatever.
It's all happening in
I apparently, and I can't confirm this, but rumors are that Jackson DeVille, who the Jaguars mascot, who wore the thong bikini this past weekend, has already been cast in 2 different rap videos.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Of course.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Magic Mike Part 3?
Yeah. He's the third lead.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a step down, but that's all right.
It's fine.
All right.
Just like it's all happening for him.
It is. Trending
When
up.
you have that kind of body, you own that.
Yeah, you got to
Right?
rep it.
You got to rep it.
Michael Gallup's got a pretty good body as well, I guess, and he is available right now in 52% of leagues. On Thanksgiving, he was basically all the Cowboys had going in that first half, and he looked a bit like Michael Gallup.
I would just like our viewers to take a note and just congratulate you on that very smooth segue from Magic Mike 3 to Michael Gallup.
Yeah. And Michael
A lot of
Gallup's
people,
his hot body.
Yeah, like whatever. Like I'm trying to think who the best. Ryan Seacrest couldn't do that.
No, he
who's
He
like
looks up to
who's like the who are some of the best hosts on try that Hoda. Like you couldn't do that. No, exactly. But you, Jay Croucher, you managed to do that. Well done there. So Michael Gallup has now had 6 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. He's a talented guy. He was coming off the injury, but there's a reason why the Cowboys said goodbye to Amari Cooper, but brought back Michael Gallup on a multi-year deal despite the massive injury. And so, listen, the numbers don't overwhelm you, right? Starting in Week 8, 4 for 49, 4 for 35, 3 for 41, 5 for 63 against the Giants, which season high, 8 targets in that game. But feels like he's trending in the right direction. We know he is a talented wide receiver with a good quarterback and a good offense. And so Michael Gallup, who gets the Colts, Texans, Jaguars before a tough game against Philadelphia over the next 3, Michael Gallup is somebody who makes our list.
Yeah, he just has such an entrenched track record of being incredibly fantasy viable. He's a target monster. Now, the further he gets removed from the injury, the more upside there is with him.
I will say I want to be, look, there's only so many balls to go around in Dallas. CeeDee Lamb's always going to be the number 1 read.
Yep.
There is a connection between Dak Prescott and Dalton Schultz. There's no question about it. He does love checking down. They're using Pollard more in the passing game. So I get the anti-Michael Gallup conversation here. But what I would tell you, and I would tell America, and specifically America, because you know what? One of us is not a commie. What I would say is that you try doing a waiver wire show going into Week 13 and finding viable wide receivers. You try it. That's where we're at. And if you think Michael Gallup is not all that exciting, wait till you hear the next guy we got for you.
Yeah, and that is Elijah Moore.
Yes, the ghost of Elijah Moore.
He's back, reincarnated.
He's back. He's making out with footballs.
Yes.
He's loving it.
He's out of the bubble.
He's out of the bubble. He's given post-game press conferences,
Yeah.
Jay Croucher. He's loving life. You know why?
Sweet cardigans.
Right, exactly. He's like, whatever. Listen, Zach Wilson, have your moms. I'm making out with this football.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out here.
Made out with it in the end zone.
Made out with it in the end zone. He's a talented player. For the entire season, we'd be like, free Elijah Moore. What happened to the guy we saw last year? He requested a trade. They didn't want to trade him, but they're not going to play him. Who knows what's going on with the Jets and Robert Saleh? But 64 yards in Week 12. In the 7 games that he played with Zach Wilson, he had 81.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. In 1 game with Mike White, 64 yards. In 7 games with Zach Wilson, 81 yards. By the way, he also scored a touchdown with Mike White. And now he gets the Minnesota Vikings, who allow the 5th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. We expect the Vikings to be able to put up points, even though the Jets' defense is really good. The expectation here is that they're going to have to throw to move the ball against Minnesota, especially if their run game is banged up, which we're going to get to in a minute here. So Elijah Moore, that's a bet on talent and a change in the situation.
Yeah, I think that there's been a little kind of muting of how good Mike White was because it was the Chicago defense and they were banged up and they're bad even when they're healthy. But, I mean, at the same time, he was playing in a monsoon. It was very difficult conditions. And just watch the throws. He was making great throws. And I think this week against Minnesota, who also don't have a good defense, we get to take the red pill and see how deep the rabbit hole goes of actually how bad was Zach Wilson. Because if Mike White is really good again, then it just changes the whole kind of complexion of the offense.
By the way, taking the red pill, that is a reference to The Matrix. Did you want to ruin the ending to The Matrix?
No, I won't. I don't even really understand how The Matrix ended, so I can't spoil it.
Can I be honest with you? I sort of was hoping you would, because I don't either.
Yeah.
I've watched all three of those movies.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't watched Resurrections or whatever the new one was, but like I watched all three of those movies. I'm like, I think he won.
Yeah.
I think they're happy. I think they're out of the stipulation.
Yeah,
I think, but I'm not totally sure.
To spoil it would to do Planet Earth a great service, because it cannot be spoiled without being explained for the first time.
Just know we all love Keanu Reeves, and it's cool.
Yes.
Neo is cool. We dig Neo.
First Matrix is untouchable.
It's so good with
with him flying. Yeah.
Like. I remember being in a movie theater and seeing like some of those scenes where just like wherever he bent, the exact scene I'm talking about. Where he falls back and it zooms around.
It's like George Pickens.
It was amazing. It was very Pickens-esque. Yeah, I mean, like The Matrix. There's a lot of stuff in movies today that happened, or the technology, or the kind of shots that started with The Matrix. Just not to get too down a movie rabbit hole, but like they built like have you ever seen any of the behind the scenes stuff of the Wachowski brothers? That when they did that movie, and I know they're not called the Wachowski brothers anymore, but anyway, that's what they were when they directed that movie. And like they built all these cameras, like they built like a zillion cameras to do that 360-degree shot. Like it's. Anyway, they did some really cool, innovative stuff with that movie. If you've never seen The Matrix, the very first Matrix, highly recommended.
The other ones could probably be passed over, though the new one was actually better than you would expect. All right,
I'll check that out.
It's worth watching.
Fair enough.
Big
That's
Keanu
an Australian movie, right?
Is it?
The Matrix?
It was filmed in Sydney.
I was going to say, they shot it.
Yeah,
They definitely shot it.
We'll claim it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we've covered The Matrix and compared George Pickens to the savior of the universe,
we're off the rails today.
Let's go to Isaiah McKenzie, who is available in 67% of leagues. Tough matchup, though, against New England.
It is. I think the positives are, that he had that one game last year against the Patriots where he went 11, 125, and a touchdown. Now, Cole Beasley was out of that game. Gabe Davis was out of that game. But still, he's had success against the Patriots and Bill Belichick before. 73% snap rate last week, which I think was encouraging. Had 10 targets in that game as well. And so as you sit here and see your screen here, he's played almost 70% of the snaps in 2 of the last 3 games. Again, this is a deep league ad, but I do think that if you read some of the press coming out around Buffalo, there's encouraging. This is a talented player that they want to get involved in the offense more. So, and the slot is an area that you potentially can attack against New England.
Josh Allen fully practicing as well. Seems like he's getting over the elbow, so you expect some upside there.
And Gabe Davis, who's one of my favorite sleepers coming into the year, and like many people in the fantasy industry were all on Gabe Davis. It just hasn't happened for him. He's had flashes, he's had moments and some big plays, but it hasn't in terms of consistent fantasy value. They're just sort of spreading it around. So maybe there's an opportunity here for Isaiah McKenzie underneath to take advantage of his speed.
Yep. Okay, let's race through a list of guys headlined by Nico Collins, who plays Cleveland this week, and he's available in 76% of leagues. 26
targets over his past 3 games here. Kyle Allen wasn't great, but he certainly wasn't any worse than Davis Mills. And so Nico Collins, who plays the Browns and available in 76% of leagues, is somebody that, qualifies at wide receiver. I do think Matt Collins, I like Matt Collins more. They're going to have to throw, especially, by the way, if Josh Jacobs doesn't play. We'll get into that in the next segment here. But he's had at least 11 fantasy points in 4 of the past 6. He's playing on 93% of the offensive snaps this season. So Matt Collins is kind of interesting he's got the Chargers, Rams, Patriots, and Steelers. So you don't love the schedule, which is one of the reasons, but we do expect Las Vegas to have to throw. You see Sky Moore there. And then Jameson Williams, it's just worth noting. So the NFL, there's just conflicting reports here. NFL Network here, and I want to make sure I get the quote right. Okay, the NFL Network reported, I'm quoting here from an NFL Network report in terms of Jameson Williams. This was done right after Thanksgiving. This week's wasn't a full speed practice, but next week's will be if he makes it through unscathed. There's a good chance he's activated. That's NFL Network saying good chance he's activated this week. Then Dan Campbell of the Lions, he's the head coach of the Lions, when asked about if Jameson Williams would play this week, in essence, would he be activated this week? He said, quote, "It would be a tall order. Anything's open. So I don't want to say it wouldn't happen, but it would take a lot, I think, this week to feel good about bringing him out." So choose your fighter. NFL Network says he's going to play this week. It's likely. They say it's a good chance he plays this week. The actual head coach of the team says it would take a lot to feel good about bringing him out. Either way, that's a story that we'll monitor throughout the week, and I can't imagine starting him in his first game he's active, whether it's this week or a following week. I think Jameson Williams should be on your roster just because he's got that kind of upside and an offense that throws quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's a perfect fantasy situation there with a great offensive line. Jared Goff is very productive when kept upright, which he is by that offensive line. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, is going to be the number one guy. But with TJ Hawkinson gone, definitely more targets to go around. Right.
And we just mentioned Sky Moore as well, just quickly. Sure. They're banged up in KC somewhat. And so back-to-back games with at least 5 receptions. Sky Moore would probably be last on my list, though, just because they spread it around and it feels like Juju will play more snaps this week.
We'll see what happens with Kadarius Toney as well.
Right.
All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, running backs, headlined by what you should do if Josh Jacobs does miss with his calf strain.
Oh, boy. Why do you hate America?
I love America.
I'm in 16 leagues, guys. I'm in 16 leagues. I didn't play against Josh Jacobs in any of them. In any of them. Thank you, fantasy gods. Thank you for Josh Jacobs. Thank you for not playing him against me.
Happy Thanksgiving, fantasy
gods.
gods.
Happy Thanksgiving. Everyone's like, what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for. That's what I'm thankful for.
Not Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, whatever. I got healthy kids and a wife, blah, 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 blah. No, it's just, the important stuff here is, didn't play against Josh Jacobs.
Oh, my God.
Wow, there's Michael Smith and then 3 randoms. Like, we couldn't, you couldn't fill in, those other 3 spots at the table with some other NBC people?
Thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, oh my God.
What the hell
Or
is
B.
that?
Rubes. What does B. Rubes got to do to... B. Rubes is at the kids' table. He's at the little person table. That's the problem.
That image of you, Matthew.
Yeah, but we could
utterly terrifying.
Pretty much any image of me is oddly terrifying, but like a little Ahmed Zari, we couldn't got Ahmed in there. We couldn't.
It's like
a little Julie Stewart-Binks.
It's like you look like Norman Bates' mother in Psycho.
Yeah, listen, don't, cut to me in the shower.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. All right, we need to cut to something else after that. Let's hear from Josh Jacobs post-game on his calf.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy, coming in, not knowing if I was going to play. Looking the guys in their eyes, telling them, that they're going to get everything they got out of me. They didn't want me to finish the game, but, I kind of convinced them that, I could go. The biggest play of the game happened after that.
How bad was the calf really throughout the week?
It was worse throughout the week. It wasn't too bad today until I caught that ball on the sideline. It kind of got stuck underneath me, and then it started getting stiff after that. But I think it'll be good by the time next week comes around.
It's very depressing knowing that Josh Jacobs' strained calf is 10,000 times more functional than my own healthy calf, because maybe he should carry a strained calf more often if he wants to go for 229 and the 86-yard touchdown.
Whatever, 303 total yards, 48.3 fantasy points. Josh Jacobs just put fantasy managers and the Raiders legitimately on his back. So NFL Network, Tom Pelissero, and Tom Pelissero is actually very good.
Okay.
Listen, I will say, just all jokes aside, that and I'm not going to denigrate anyone specifically. I will just say that there are reporters out there that work for various networks that are really good, and there are others that are more inconsistent. And I think it's important to know, everyone's going to miss once in a while, but for the most part, you're reporting news. In essence, it's facts. It's not like me saying this is what I think will happen in the future.
Yeah.
Reporters are reporting news, something that is actually factual based. That is, so I will just say that I think that it is important as a fantasy football manager. One piece of advice I would give is figuring out who is good and who is not. And I'm just saying, there are certain people that are really, really strong. Schefter's really good. When Schefter is, when it comes to news breaking, he's 99% of the time on the money. Jay Glazer, another guy, really good. When Jay Glazer he's like a sniper. When Jay Glazer takes a shot, like he nails it. All right, Pelissero is another guy who's really good. Albert Breer is really good. So anyway, there's some guys out there that I think are really good, and that's important too. And it's not to say the people I didn't mention aren't good. Anyway, Pelissero is the guy who tweeted this out, that just basically he's not going to practice much this week, if at all. Don't know, his status for Sunday's game against the Chargers is questionable. That is notable, Jay Croucher, not only because Josh Jacobs is fantasy royalty at the moment, and I believe the second best running back in fantasy on the season, but they're playing the Chargers, right? I mean, like, the Chargers are 28th in running defense. Like, they're giving up over 150 rushing yards a game. James Conner just had 140 total yards against him. They've allowed 125 rushing yards to a running back in 5 straight games. And so if Josh Jacobs can't go this week, Zamir White and Amir Abdullah in that order become really interesting. I will say that I think Abdullah has a higher floor because he'll have passing game work. It'll be somewhat of a committee here. But Zamir White should be the between the tackles guy in a great matchup against the Chargers.
Yeah. If I were a betting man, which I happen to be a betting man, I would say Jacobs is probably going to play. Because the Raiders, this is their season. They're 4-7. They still have an outside chance of making the playoffs. If he didn't actually pull anything, and clearly didn't, because he ended the game on an 86-yard breakaway touchdown run to end it, I suspect that he probably does play. But yeah,
literally the phrase was round the clock treatment. So I'm with you. My expectation is probably that he does, but I do think it's worth noting because it's notable, and he's right. And so I do think, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in this segment, but Zamir White, it's important to have insurance running backs so that if you had Josh Jacobs and you have Zamir White, you're not worried. Because it's like, okay, like Zamir White's not going to be as good as Josh Jacobs, but now I don't need to go to the waiver wire and battle everyone. So it's like one of those things that, again, as you go to the waiver wire, if you're feeling good, and as we get later in the season and we're heading more towards the playoffs, it's more important that your bench is filled with insurance backs than it is, I keep waiting for this guy to bust out.
Yep.
Like it's week 13.
Yep.
Like if he's going to bust out, he probably would have happened already.
Yep.
Like you got to have 1 or 2 guys. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown did that last year. There will be guys that still pop, but they're fewer and far between.
Yep. Some uncertainty around Jacobs. Unfortunately, no uncertainty around Elijah Mitchell, who has the same MCL sprain. He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. Kyle Shanahan also said that Christian McCaffrey is dealing with some irritation in his knee as Matthew finishes his drink at 12:40
Well, I was just
PM.
noticing, I was trying to notice like what was on the bottom, because I noticed as I lifted up to drink, there's probably something on the bottom of my cup, as people may see it, and I was like, what is that?
It's your initials, because it's your special cup. It's your MB cup. I have a JC cup.
Yeah, there's an MB. I didn't know that, but that's helpful.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't want your germs.
Yeah.
And let me pick, you definitely don't want mine.
Yeah, no, that's 100%
make no
right.
mistake. Like I
love the initials.
I'm a walking petri dish. I have 5 kids.
A PD?
Oh my God.
Petri dish? No,
yeah.
All right, Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price, who coming into today were basically available everywhere. They won't be after waivers clear, but who do you want between those 2 guys?
I think it's TDP. So, he wasn't active last game. Jordan Mason was, but I actually weirdly count that as a benefit to TDP because they have to have a running back on, special teams and that kind of stuff. So the fact that he wasn't active, I think that's interesting. Look, the first game after Elijah Mitchell, remember Elijah Mitchell hurt his knee in week 1. Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't back yet. They didn't have Christian McCaffrey. And so in the first week after Elijah Mitchell's knee injury, he had 14 rushing attempts in week 2. And so my guess is he's only become more comfortable with the offense since that time. So Tyrion Davis-Price would be my choice, 3rd-round pick for San Francisco this year. The expectation is probably they put more on Christian McCaffrey's plate. Maybe you see some more Deebo Samuel in the backfield. We've gone away from that a little bit, but maybe you see a little bit more if Deebo is 100%. But if I'm picking a Niners running back, and given how much usage Mitchell was getting post-CMC trade, and Mitchell and CMC being a little bit banged up as well, I do think it's important to have another running back on San Francisco, and Tyrion Davis-Price is my choice.
Yeah, lots to monitor with San Francisco in general. Jimmy G hurt his knee. He looks like he'll play, but he might be limited. Deebo Samuel as well, got the quad contusion, had the hamstring as well, so just a lot to monitor there. Let's go to Kansas City.
George Kittle fully healthy.
Yeah.
Like the one guy.
George Kittle show.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Kansas City, where the Chiefs are expected to sign Melvin Gordon. What does this do for Melvin Gordon? And perhaps more importantly, what does it do for Isaiah Pacheco?
It's a smart signing by Kansas City because if you look at the statistical metrics, one area, it's a really good team. But if there's one area where they're lacking, it was fumbles.
There you go. I was waiting for what you were building to.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you knew there was a path to something.
Yeah, it's a good build.
Yeah, thank you. So, right, they were like, oh, let's pad the stats here. And let's go get us some fumbles. What I would tell you though, we all make fun of Melvin Gordon, but think about this. Take 1 second here. If you're Melvin Gordon, right? Melvin Gordon, we're stuck in Denver, man. We can't win a game. I'm losing carries to Latavius Murray. I'm trying to sleep on the plane, and Russell Wilson's doing leg squats around me. He's bending down, his butt's in my face. What am I doing here? What am I doing? Who needs a running back? Kansas City needs a running back, Kansas City needs a running back because they put in the claim for Eno Benjamin, didn't get him. CEH is on IR. They need a running back. Kansas City's probably going to the Super Bowl this year. Denver up, I fumbled again. I probably shouldn't release me. Oh, no. Are we near the goal line? I probably should let me go.
One of the great Melvin Gordon impressions you'll ever see.
Just saying.
Accent was right on.
Wow, just Melvin Gordon, by the way. Melvin Gordon's playing chess while we're all playing checkers because Melvin Gordon got the hell out of Denver and that situation and now has a shot at a Super Bowl ring. Now, would it be a Super Bowl ring the way that LaShawn McCoy has a Super Bowl ring? Would it be he's going the Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy route? Look, ha 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 ha. Bye, y'all fans. This is what Melvin Gordon put on his Instagram story. That's Melvin Gordon photoshopped into the Bronco that that AC Cowlings drove away with OJ. So let's at least laugh on the way out. Yeah, I'm laughing on the way out because I'm going to Kansas City.
Unbelievable.
I'm upgrading from the ghost of Russell Wilson to Patrick freaking Mahomes.
Yep. Good for Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, this is you talk about kind of landing in it. One thing I will say, here's what I will say in terms of fantasy value for Melvin Gordon, because the poor social guys are like, how are we clipping this? All right, here you go. I'll reset it. Social guys, here we go. Fantasy value of Melvin Gordon on Kansas City at the moment is nil, right? It is going to be the Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon show. However, I do think eventually, probably not this week, but soon he will be elevated off the practice squad. And I think they probably get him 5 touches a game, maybe 7. The fumbles are a documented issue, which is concerning, and Pacheco's been good around the goal line. Jerick McKinnon's a better passing down back. He's clearly their third down guy, their 2-minute drill guy. They trust McKinnon and pass pro for Patrick Mahomes. But Pacheco's an unproven rookie, and the one thing about Melvin Gordon is Melvin Gordon's a really good pass catcher. He's a good pass-catching running back, and he's a legitimate between-the-tackles guy who still has some juice left, right? He's, again, joking about the Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy signings, but he's in a much better spot in his career and his playing ability than those two guys were when they signed with Kansas City. So they clearly need depth. Again, with CEH out, they didn't get Eno Benjamin. They tried to make the claim on him. So I think that what Melvin Gordon gives the Chiefs offense is some versatility. When Pacheco's in there, you pretty much know, okay, they're running, right? And when McKinnon's in there, you're like, oh, they're probably going to pass. Now, try stopping that is the other issue. But at least with Melvin Gordon, you're not sure because he can go out in the flat and catch a pass. He can also go between the tackles here. So I think it's more of a concern about the fantasy value of Pacheco, really, than it is about Melvin Gordon having any standalone value. I'm not going out and rushing to grab Melvin Gordon unless Pacheco gets hurt. I will say, though, if he's on my team and I don't need the roster spot, you never know. You know what I mean? Like, he could supplant Pacheco later in the season if he sort of proves himself. Stranger things have happened.
There's some upside there. All right, let's get to waiver wire running backs. Let's race through a few of these names. Start with Gus Edwards, who plays the Broncos, available in 44% of leagues. I think he should just be rostered everywhere.
Yeah, 84% of the team's running back carries last week, 16 and a touchdown in both full games that he's played this year. Now, J.K. Dobbins is expected back to practice this week, but the fact is, I mean, just Kenyon Drake was an afterthought here. Even when Dobbins comes back, it's going to be at least Gus and Dobbins. He needs a touchdown to pay off because he doesn't have passing game work, but he is a legitimate touchdown-dependent flex on a team that runs the ball and runs the ball well.
Yep. Any interest in Kyron Williams going up against the Seattle defense that just got destroyed by Josh Jacobs on one leg?
In a desperate league. I mean, he was running back 35 this week. You know, has at least 3 receptions and 25 receiving yards in 2 of his 3 games. It is worth noting, to your point, Seattle allows the 4th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, skewed, of course, by the fact that Josh Jacobs put up almost a 50-burger on them.
On one leg as well.
On one leg as well, one calf at least. But so Kyren Williams is, the next guy I think is much more interesting if Michael Carter misses time. Worth noting, Rich Cimini, my former colleague at ESPN who covers the Jets, does a great job saying Michael Carter 50-50 to play this week. He's got a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, so that's good news for your Jets. You're still on the Jets, right?
I was going to, yeah.
You were off them and then you're back on.
I'm back on them.
Or you're back on
yeah.
now that
I've always been on Sauce Gardner. My Jets love kind of waves based on whether Zach Wilson's playing quarterback or not. But speaking of those Jets, Bam Knight. Who our good friend Connor Rogers, I was going to say resident Jets fan, but I'm the resident Jets fan on this show.
Right.
Bam Knight, he said, was the guy that you want over Ty Johnson. Bam Knight's got more upside. You with Connor on that?
I am. Who's going to? Connor literally does the Jets.
I think you should go against him on this.
No, I mean, Connor literally does the Jets pre and post game show on SNY. He's covered the team. He's at the practices. He knows. Connor's really smart. And so, by the way, the guy's name is Zonovan Knight. Just in case, if you're going to your waiver wire and you're like, where's Bam Knight? I don't see Bam Knight.
Yeah,
he's likely listed under Zonovan, but everyone calls him Bam. I call him Bam. When we're hanging out and watching the game later today, I'll call him Bam. But 66% of the running back snaps in the second half last week. Ty Johnson only got 28%. He was running back 18 this past week, and so he's a true 3-down back. He's available in the passing game. We've talked about this. Ty Johnson's gotten his opportunities and hasn't gotten it, and so honestly, I think Bam Knight is a priority, even if Michael Carter plays this week, because I don't know that he gets the full workload. I think they like what they have in Bam Knight. Vikings, Bills, Lions, Jags are the next 4. You don't love the Vikings or Buffalo as great matchups, but they're also not super, super scary for pass-catching running backs.
Sure, yep.
They're not great matchups, but they're not unideal.
No.
You know what I mean? They're like,
We've got Bam Adebayo, Bam Knight. We just need one for baseball. Maybe Bam Trout, something. Baseball needs to get on the Bam level.
Right. We need a Bam.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who's the guy from Jackass? Bam Margera, right?
Yeah.
Sure. So maybe we can get him into a wrestling or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that.
Maybe you can sign for the Orioles.
Yeah.
For relief
Exactly.
pitching.
Yeah.
It may all be a moot point because Michael Carter has a low ankle sprain, apparently not a high ankle sprain.
Correct.
According to Robert Salzer, he might just play. Quickly on these last couple
guys.
But
I do think Bam Knight gets some work even if Carter is active.
Sure. With James Robinson still looking like he's dealing with
I prefer Bam Knight to Kyren Williams.
Yep. Okay, JaMychal Hasty, who plays at Detroit this week. Any interest in him? He's available in 97% of leagues. Looks like Etienne is fine, though.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson said that. Etienne himself said that he should be good to go. But, yes, there's interest in JaMychal Hasty, just in the same way that we talked about, there's interest in some of these other insurance running backs that you want them. Like, again, like Zamir White, as we talked about here. Right? And so you just go ahead and put up the full screen guys here. You think about the Alexander Madisons, the James Cooks of the world, the Deion Jackson behind Jonathan Taylor, the Chuba Hubbard behind Deontay Foreman, even though the Panthers are off this week. How about Keontae Ingram? He's on a bye this week because he's the backup to Connor. But these are the guys, and I would add Kenneth Gainwell behind Miles Sanders to this list. I would add JaMychal Hasty to the Jaguars to this. I don't know that they have standalone value unless, to your point, Etienne misses. We don't expect Etienne miss, but after Etienne left that game, he played on 78% of the snaps. He caught all 5 of his targets, 67 yards and a touchdown in the air as well. Lions allow 126 scrimmage yards per game to running backs. So if for some reason Etienne gets worse over the week, and we've heard this right before, Fournette's going to be fine. Cut to Fournette missing the game after 2 weeks, right? So you never know. But given Etienne's massive usage and his injury history, JaMychal Hasty is a must roster if you have ETN or you're trying to screw over the ETN manager in your league.
Yep, I'm with you there. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, quarterbacks on the waiver wire, including 2 in a blockbuster between the Jags and the Lions. We'll talk about both Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff.
Hey now, big names. That's what sells. Good job.
Waiver wire quarterbacks. Let's start off, Matthew. Wardrobe change.
Wardrobe change. I want to just take one quick minute here to say Cheshire High School football rules. There you go. My 18-year-old, they made the playoffs. They're ranked 8th in the state of Connecticut. They play tonight against number 1 seed St. Joe's. They got the work cut out for them, but I believe in them. My kid's a starting strong safety, outside linebacker. Depends. We'll see where he lines up today, but he's a monster kid. Connor. So love you, Connor. Go Cheshire Rams. Go Rams.
Wow, wasn't expecting that at all, but great. Go
I'm just
Rams.
saying. So anyway, just want to represent.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose. All right.
Clear eyes, full heart. Can't lose. Let's go Cheshire football. Let's go Cheshire football.
Well, I'm not sure Connor would be that much worse than the defenders on the Detroit Lions, and they play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The total's 51.5. This is what it's all about. Jags, Lions, high scoring. Jags are favored now on the road in Detroit. I'm assuming you like Trevor Lawrence this week.
Yeah, how could you not? Like, since week 6, he's been the 8th best quarterback in fantasy on a points-per-game basis. As you mentioned, the Lions are #not good. There you go. There's some analysis for you. Look, they allow 23.8 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. That is the most in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is going to make the love list this week, and he should be on your waiver wire, especially, by the way, if you're looking for a quarterback, you don't have Kyler Murray this week. You might need a guy.
Jared Goff as well in that matchup, who is back to putting up stats. He is kind of the ultimate garbage time quarterback in this Detroit offense.
Especially at home this week, and the game is in Detroit. He's averaging 20.4 fantasy points per game on the turf in the Dome in Detroit. Jacksonville on their own right, allowing the 7th most fantasy points game to opposing quarterbacks. 51.5 is the early over-under on BetMGM. It's the second highest on the slate.
Yep. Let's jump to my quarterback, Mike White, who wasn't really thought of as a fantasy option coming into the Chicago game, was really an afterthought. But after what he did against the Bears, now he goes up against a Minnesota defense that rejuvenated Mac Jones, who, by the way, no one's talking about that. Mac Jones was incredible in that game. He might just be back.
He looked like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You're like, Brady who?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was unbelievably, it was annoying. But the Vikings, by the way, including Mac Jones, have allowed 300 passing yards in their last 3 games. Right? They've given up multiple touchdown passes in 5 of the last 6, and so Mike White, who the rejuvenated Mike White, you know what I mean? Again, especially with a running game that might be a little bit banged up, and a game in which they're going to need to score. So Mike White suddenly becomes interesting against Minnesota, and we'll see. It'll be hard to find news on Aaron Rodgers. People in the media don't like talking about him. But you'll have to really do some digging on Google. But eventually, there'll probably be news about whether or not Aaron Rodgers is playing this week. Hard to find because he definitely doesn't like the spotlight, and people don't like talking about him. I can't tell you how many meetings I had at ESPN. Please let me talk about Aaron Rodgers. Like, no. We refuse. We don't let him on any ever. But I was just like, guys, I'm telling you, I think there'll be some people interested in Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely not. ESPN does definitely not like to talk about him. But anyway, if we find out somehow, some way that he's not playing this week, Jordan Love sort of becomes interesting against that Bears defense that made Mike White a thing.
Indeed. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, tight ends. We're going to need to do some digging on Google about the tight ends. We've got you covered there after the break.
Go Rams!
All right, waiver wire tight ends, and let's start by taking the boat out, Matthew, to the island of Foster Moreau.
Absolutely, it's a wonderful island. He's had 12 or more fantasy points in 2 of the past 3 games. He's really playing a lot of snaps, filling in for Darren Waller. He's playing the Chargers this week, then the Rams, Patriots, Steelers. You don't love that, but available in 61% of leagues. Worth noting that the Chargers bottom 10 in the NFL in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. He's had at least 1 target inside the 10-yard line in 3 straight games. Carr likes to look for him when they get close. And how about Evan Ingram at Detroit?
Sure.
Again, we expect a ton of points to be scored in that game. Lions have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. They've given up 7 touchdowns to tight ends this season. That's tied for 3rd most in the NFL, Jay Croucher. So Evan Ingram on the waiver wire options for tight ends. Look, it's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. Go USA, go Cheshire Rams. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.